What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. U Stadium on the clock. I'm joined by Justin today. How's it going, Justin?
I'm doing very well. Draft weekend is over, so it's a bit bittersweet, but it's always fun to go back and look at those draft classes, see which ones are good, which ones suck. Spoiler alert, Rams, you struck out. But I'm very excited to get into this because Splash and I today, we've each got our 3 favorite and 3 least favorite draft classes from, this past draft. And we're also going to be, toward the end, after all that, we're going to be looking at some rookies and predicting their stat lines for the upcoming year. And then toward the end, we'll probably have a bit of a Q&A section so we get some of your questions answered.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to do a little teaser. We're going to start with my third place team. I know Justin didn't have them in any specific order, but if you like this graphic, there's going to be plenty more. This is just a little teaser. I'm going to be doing some recorded shows with some draft classes, breaking down every single one, division by division. And I'm going to start with the Patriots. A- in total. They have some of my favorite picks in the draft. Christian Barmore, I had him as a top 25 player, first-round talent. He goes in the second round. I had Ronnie Perkins as a top 40 player, top of the second-round talent. He goes 96th. That's the Tom Brady compensation pick. So I think in a few years, when Ronnie Perkins is like a Pro Bowl guy, you're going to be thinking as a Patriots fan, hey, we got something out of Brady, And speaking of Brady, speaking of Michigan, Cameron Mcgrone in the 5th round, one of my favorite picks in the draft, an A+ for me. I had him even higher on my board than Mac Jones, and I'm higher than Jones. I'll circle back to Jones in a second. Joshua Bledsoe out of Missouri. He and Gillespie were fantastic on the back line for the Tigers. William Sherman, didn't really scout him. Trey Nixon, didn't scout him, but they're 6th and 7th round picks. Those are the only strikeouts. And Ramondre Stevenson, running back out of Oklahoma, really good player. A little rich for me, a running back, so he gets a C. But you're looking at 3 A's, an A+, a B+, 4 A's, and a B+. I think New England knocked it out of the park. This is as good as it gets. Belichick, you figured it out this year. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm not as high on the Patriots class as you were. I like the Mac Jones pick. I've been on record saying that, if he's going to be successful anywhere, it's going to be New England. Bill Belichick, as we all know, he loves that short, intermediate passing game.
Yes.
I also love the Ronnie Perkins pick. I like the Barmore pick, but it just doesn't wow me like the way some of these other classes do. I think they could have gone a little bit better over in the later rounds. I do like the Ramondre Stevenson pick, though. I feel like that's a very classic Patriots pick. He's going to be classic Patriots running back, and it probably means Sonny Michel is on his way out, which Patriots fans should be very excited about. I know he had that great playoff run a few years back, but he's just simply not a great running back. But I think if they wanted a quarterback, I believe I remember reading Mac Jones was a pick all along.
Right.
But I think, with the way Justin Fields slipped, I think they should have been a little bit more aggressive and try to go all out and get him. Because I believe Justin Fields with this retooled Patriots team would have been very, very dangerous. But it's a good class. I can't complain about it. I agree that it's probably top 10, at the very least top 15 class.
Okay.
But I'm going to go into my first favorite class of 2021, and it's actually going to be the Carolina Panthers. So I went a little bit back and forth on this. There, of course, you can say they could have drafted Justin Fields at 8. Justin Fields fell into their lap at 8. They should have drafted him. I agree. I believe that should have been the pick over J.C. Horn at 8. I'm not a fan of Sam Darnold, as we all know, and I think Fields should have been the pick. However, J.C. Horn is my cornerback 1 and probably my favorite defensive prospect in this draft outside of Zevin Collins.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's going to be a true physical corner. He's going to match up very well with those NFC South receivers, and one day he'll be a shutdown corner. I believe that. Terrace Marshall Jr., my wide receiver 5, I believe he's going to be, a good weapon once they get a good quarterback. But Terrace Marshall Jr., I believe that was great value where they got him. Brady Christensen, one of the more underrated tackles in this draft. A very good pick there. Tommy Tremble, I believe that says pick 83. I would have liked to see them get Hunter Long at 81. That would have made this offense very, very dangerous. But as we all know, Hunter Long went to Miami. But Tremble's a good consolation prize. I like Tremble. Hubbard, I'm not the biggest fan of, but he'll be def behind McCaffrey and Davis. Davion Nixon, I believe, was excellent value in the 5th round. The same with Deontay Brown in the 6th round. But to me, the true standout of this class, Shi Smith in the 6th round, that is excellent, excellent value. Shi Smith is my sleeper pick from this class. I believe he's a true dog of a receiver. He's going to be a very, very good weapon. He might, alongside Marshall and Anderson, he'll be a great weapon for Darnold or whatever quarterback comes along. I believe next year Carolina, if Darnold doesn't, miraculously turn his career around, I believe Carolina should give up the farm for one of the top quarterbacks, whoever that end up may be, because I believe they've built an excellent roster. Matt Rule is a great coach, and I like what he's doing with these past 2 draft classes.
Absolutely.
Thomas Fletcher, you get your long snapper, I guess. Bill Hoskins, I've never got the chance to look at, but always good to have an offensive line depth. I really like this Panthers draft class.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina got an A- for me. They were right on the verge of being in this. I gave them 6 A's, including 1 A+, Davion Nixon. Love the Horn pick, but again, have Fields on the board. Marshall, great value. Christensen, great value. Tremble, I had Tremble as my tight end 3, so awesome value there. Keith Taylor out of Washington, he's going to be really nice. And then we mentioned Deontay Brown, and you went with Shi Smith. So I'm going to go to the team that actually took Justin Fields here. We got this. This is glorious. I think Justin Fields might be the best quarterback in the history of the Bears already. He or Sid Luckman.
I'm pretty sure I said that on the sports desk. I said that I said it as a joke initially, and then I actually looked into the history of the quarterback of the Bears, and his only true competition was Sid Luckman and Jay Cutler.
Yeah, it's ugly. So Fields at 11, A+. Easy.
Definitely.
He's commonly regarded as the best pick in the 1st round. He doesn't happen to be my best pick of the draft. We'll get to that later. But Fields is an A+. They traded up with the Giants. Dave Gettleman trading down in the draft.
Unheard of.
Tevin Jenkins in the 2nd round. He slipped out of the 1st with some health concerns, but you get a starting tackle in round 2. 39th pick. You traded up to get that A+. So Jenkins was number 16 on my board.
Mm-hmm.
Then the rest of the draft class wasn't A+, but when you have 2 picks in the top 40 and they're both A+, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. Larry Borum, haven't watched much of him, but I mean, you already have a starting tackle from this draft. Khalil Herbert, I think he was a big PFF guy, but Herbert, Virginia Tech, really talented back, good value. I had him right at the end of my top 200, so I think that's great value. They got Daz Newsome, should be a day 1 slot receiver, and I gave that an A. Thomas Graham should be a day 1 slot corner in the NFL, A+, or not A+, an A for him. So you got starters, Fields, Jenkins, and then you get your slot starter potentially and your slot corner starter. Awesome value for the Bears. And then they got Kyrus Tonga out of BYU. Never heard of him, but that's the 250th pick in the draft. I gave it an A. It's my 2nd favorite draft class. Chicago, Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace. You get the double thumbs up from me because I'm sure you care about my opinion.
Yeah, they definitely saved a few jobs there with that draft class. I believe with those first 2 picks, Fields and Jenkins, I believe they could have pretty much taken anybody they wanted in the rest of the draft, and they still would have won. I love the Fields pick. I love the Jenkins pick. Those are 2 of the best picks in the draft without a doubt. But like you said, they also added some great guys in Daz Newsome, one of my favorite players of this draft. And who was it you said? It was the corner, Thomas Graham.
Thomas Graham.
Day 1 slot corner, like you said, another excellent pick. But of course, the highlight is Fields. I've been on record saying I believe he's just as good as a quarterback as Trevor Lawrence is right now. In the future, that's to be determined.
Right.
But in this very moment, I believe Justin Fields is on par with Trevor Lawrence. And him sliding all the way down to 11 was a travesty. I believe there should have been multiple teams who should have taken him before 11 or traded up to, say, 9 with Denver or 8 with Carolina to get him. Washington, maybe.
Yep.
New England, maybe. But I think he'll be the first good quarterback in Chicago in a very long time. But I think with Chicago, it all really depends on Nagy. Like he was the coach of the year at one point with Trubisky as his quarterback. Can he recapture some of that former glory? It really depends. I believe Justin Fields will definitely be saving a few jobs there. But how about we move on to my favorite draft class
Let's hear it.
of this 2021 NFL draft, that being the Minnesota Vikings. Going to get a graphic for this, but
Here we go. Ooh.
we all saw the Minnesota Vikings trade down 9 spots and still get the guy they would have taken at 14 anyway. You said that's an A++ for you, Christian Darrisaw.
Best pick of the entire draft right there.
Absolutely. No second round pick, but they killed this third round. I actually like the Kellen Mond pick. I know a lot of people were kind of confused about it, but Kellen Mond, I believe, sitting behind Kirk Cousins for a couple of years, maybe Cousins eventually flames out. Who knows? Maybe Kellen Mond will be your QB of the future. I believe he can be developed. Chaz Surratt, my linebacker 5, one of my favorite picks of this draft. I believe he's going to be an excellent fit in that Vikings defense. Alongside Anthony Barr. You got Wyatt Davis, the guard out of Ohio State. I believe he was my interior offensive lineman 2 or 3. Can't quite remember. Patrick Jones, another excellent pick. Kenny Nwangwu, I hope I'm saying that right, but
I think so.
He's probably going to be your running back 3 behind Mattinson and Cook, but he offers excellent value in the return game. Then you had Cameron Bynum, a solid corner out of California. Janarius Robinson, one of my favorite late-round picks, defensive end out of Florida State. I was hoping he would fall to Miami, but didn't happen. Amir Smith-Marset, another sleeper wide receiver for me. Zach Davidson at tight end. And Jalen Twyman, excellent value there at pick 199. I believe he's going to be a contributor on that defensive line. But what really stands out to me is this part right here, this early round, rounds 1 and 3. I believe they killed this third round and, the trade down with the Jets to get the guy they would have taken. Best move of the draft. I believe the Vikings won this draft. And other than the Lions, I don't think it's really particularly close. I believe those 2 teams had excellent drafts. They stood out above the rest for me.
Absolutely.
And I think the Vikings might make a return to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I actually have money on them to win the division. I had money on it before the whole Rodgers thing and before they really hit a home run in this draft class. I gave Darrisaw an A++, Davis an A-, Jones an A-, Smith-Marset an A. I think he's I've seen comparisons to Adam Thielen, and of course Adam Thielen is really, really good. Yeah. But you're going to have probably a day one, maybe not day one. By week 3, I think Amir Smith-Marset is going to be getting valuable snaps for the Vikings.
Yeah.
And I gave Jalen Twyman an A- there at the end of the 6th round. Speaking of the Lions, they had, in my opinion, the best draft class. Mm-hmm. You talk about these teams and you look, well, there's a pick here that you didn't really like. There's a pick there you didn't really like. Like even Chicago, even you and Carolina with Hubbard. There's always a pick you don't like. The worst grade I gave any Lions pick was a B+. Penny Sewell, A+. Levi Onwuzurike, A. Aleem McNeil, A. Afatu Melifonwu, A. Ahmad-Ra St. Brown, A. Derek Barnes, I'm lower on him than a lot of people, still a B+. Jamar Jefferson with the 257th pick in the draft, A. I would have taken him where Carolina took Chuba Hubbard, and they get him with 2 picks left in the draft. I think Detroit had they had an all-time level class. I don't want to say it's like a top 3 ever, of course, because none of these guys are in the Hall of Fame yet, like the 74 Steelers, 96 Ravens, for example, or the 2012 Seahawks. But again, your worst pick is Derek Barnes, I think, and that's a B+ pick to me. This is a franchise-altering draft. You saw that Dan Campbell went in the trenches and said, okay, we're going to get guys that are going to bite your kneecaps off, like he said in his opening presser. Penny Sewell is that guy. Levi,
yes, exactly.
I wish I had the clip of Onwuzurike talking about. He dropped more F-bombs than I think that you can possibly imagine in 30 seconds. Aleem McNeil is insane out of North Carolina State. Melifonwu, incredibly physical corner. You add that to a room that you already have Okudah. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, I had him as my number 51 prospect. Stellar wide receiver. I had him over, I don't know if I had him over Elijah Moore, but I had him in that same tier as Elijah Moore. I know Jets fans love Moore. Same tier as Tony. I know Giants fans are going to love Tony. But this is an awesome class. Like I don't give it an A or an A plus because they didn't get a quarterback. And I mean, you can argue Fields. If it's Fields over Sewell, I still think it's an A. But they don't have a quarterback. But this is as good of a draft class as I think you can have without drafting a quarterback like Chicago did. So I think phenomenal draft class from the Lions.
Yeah, I agree. This is my second favorite draft class, right behind the Vikings. I'm going to take a phrase from one of my favorite YouTubers, Urinating Tree. I described his draft class as substance over flash. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's what Detroit did here. I believe that's what Dan Campbell is going for in his vision with Detroit. I love Dan Campbell. I've been on record saying I believe he's the best head coaching hire of this offseason, up there with Saleh. Mm-hmm. Dan Campbell is going to turn this franchise around, and he's going to turn them into a playoff contender by 2023, without a doubt. He's shoring up the trenches, and that's where you start in a rebuild. You start on the line. They've got three excellent linemen, Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, who just got a bag today, and Taylor Decker over at the other tackle position. Then you bolster that defensive line with McNeil and Onwuzurike. Melifonwu was a great pick in the third round. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I also love him. There's absolutely no reason he should have fell to the fourth. That is travesty, in my opinion. And the Lions made an excellent move getting him. I know a lot of critics were saying, oh, they should have taken a receiver earlier. They have no receivers. And I get that with the loss of Jones and Golladay. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a great slot receiver from day one. And
I look ahead to Cephas too.
Exactly. You look ahead to next year's class, and you've got some solid options there at both quarterback and receiver. You know, they may be in the Sam Howell sweepstakes, maybe Spencer Rattler, Keaton Slovis. And then a wide receiver, you've got guys like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, the guy from Georgia, George Pickens. Mm-hmm. So it's not the end of the world that they didn't pick a receiver or a quarterback, because you want to address the important stuff first.
Absolutely.
I know quarterback is obviously the most important position, but I think a lot of people forget Jared Goff led a team to the Super Bowl not too long ago. Mm-hmm. I know he's not all that, but Jared Goff is a serviceable quarterback, and he's going to get this team through the rebuild and maybe back to the playoffs. So the other important positions, you know, the line, the secondary, Dan Campbell addressed that, and he addressed their biggest weakness in receiver in the fourth round by getting a good receiver, even though receiver isn't as, say, valuable of a position as either the lines or the secondary. So the Lions had an excellent draft, and I believe with another good draft next year, they'll be back in the playoffs sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And of course they have the draft capital in the Stafford trade. So even if Goff like lucks you into a couple wins here or there, you want to trade up for Howell, Rattler, whoever ends up being QB1 out of this class, you want to trade up for them? You can. I mean, feel free. There's a chance the Jags are terrible, the Jets are terrible, another team that has a quarterback is terrible. I don't think Cincinnati would be that bad, but we saw this year that you can have a quarterback and be terrible. Mm-hmm. And Cincinnati was never – yes. Cincinnati was never going to take Fields, right? But they had a top 5 pick. You know, and if you're the Lions and you end up, I don't know, 6-11 and end up at like pick 12, you're gonna have the 12th pick. You're gonna have the probably mid-20s from the Rams. You have some extra draft capital. You can trade up and get a quarterback if you really want one, you know, or you can sit there and take Chris Olave, Wilson, any number of guys, or you can take more defensive talent. I think this year's draft was a little weak defensively. Next year's draft, I feel like it's gonna be a lot more loaded.
Edge class is very impressive. But speaking of a defensive draft, how about we look at my third and final draft class of this year? Your division rival, Cleveland Browns. Man, I said go defense. They didn't exactly do that, but they, you know, first 2 picks defense, you know, good enough for me. Greg Newsome, I expected him to go 16 to Arizona, actually. Zaven Collins, one of my favorite players in the draft, went there, and I believe he's going to get wasted by Vance Joseph, and I'm very upset about that. But Greg Newsome, one of the more underrated corner prospects in this very deep corner class, I believe he's going to be an excellent addition next to Denzel Ward in that secondary. Then you grab Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in the second round. no, I don't think anybody was expecting this.
Yeah, that's one of the best values of the entire class.
Most definitely. Apparently, it was due to a heart issue, but I mean, he's been cleared by doctors, so I'm not as high on JOK as most people were, but I believe, getting him that late is excellent value. And whether you put him at linebacker or whether you put him at safety, you're going to have a very good player there, very good value. Anthony Schwartz, a burner out of Auburn. I love this pick for Baker Mayfield. I believe, get him some separators, get him guys who can fly, and he's going to elevate Baker Mayfield's play. James Hudson, I like this pick in the 4th round. Tommy Togiai, I'm butchering that name most definitely, but he was in my top 5 the interior defensive lineman. I love that value there in the 4th. Sonny Fields is good. Richard LeCount, I like that value there in the 5th as well. And Demetric Felton might be my favorite pick in this class. I love Demetric Felton, and getting him in the 6th is a steal. Use him at running back, use him at receiver. I think he'll play like a bit of an H-back role over there in Cleveland. Get more dynamic playmakers, surround Baker Mayfield with talent. And honestly, I think with this draft class in this free agency haul that Cleveland had, they might have one of the most well-rounded rosters in the league. And it might be one of the most well-rounded in the AFC, other than the Chiefs or the Bills. I think they're right up there with them. I think the Bucs are most definitely number 1. I think the Browns are right there with the Chiefs and the Bills in terms of, all around, like, lacking in weakness. I think they could have shored up the defensive line just a little bit more, but I would not be surprised to see Cleveland in the AFC Championship game this year if Baker Mayfield can take a leap. I know that sounds like hell to you, but
yeah,
I'm anticipating it.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I had the Browns A- grade. I gave JOK an A+. The worst pick for me was Anthony Schwartz. I gave that a B-. I think it was a little early, but even that pick, he is a perfect fit in the offense, because you saw when Odell went down, we talked to was it Steve from the Orange and Brown Report yesterday on the Jets show, that the Browns only needed one thing offensively, and that was a true deep threat when Odell went down.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Schwartz runs a 4.26. There you go. Even if he can't do anything besides run straight up the field, you're going to be good. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't as high on Hudson or Togiai as other people, but those are still really solid picks. So in total, A-. Felton got an A at the end too. So I think the Browns definitely, like, if I'm making a roster only, like, power rankings, I think they're number 2 behind Tampa right now. Mm-hmm. So absolutely stellar draft class from the Browns. And that's gonna lead us to the opposite of stellar. These are pretty crappy. I'm gonna start with Green Bay. We're gonna get this out of the way. Shout out to friend of the show, Lambo Leapers. We didn't actually talk about the draft yesterday, but because Aaron Rodgers, but it's an interesting class. So it starts number 29, Eric Stokes. I gave it a C+. I understand he's super athletic. He ran a 4.2 40. Green Bay loves their super athletic corners, but I think there were better corners available. Asante Samuel, anyone? Josh Myers. Creed Humphrey was picked 1 pick later. Are you kidding me, Green Bay? I gave that a D-. Maybe a little harsh. But I guess I made up for it. Amari Rodgers, I think that's an A. Royce Newman, you could have gotten Stone Forsythe. I gave that an F. I gave to Daryl Slayton a D. I think you're taking. They use their 4th and 5th round picks to just start throwing at dartboards, and you don't do that. You can't be successful and do that. Look at all the other classes we've talked about. 4th and 5th round, you're getting depth. You're getting guys that have slipped. You're getting talented players that have either the tools or the production in college. I'll use the Ravens as an example. Tylan Wallace is one of the most productive wide receivers in the history of the Big 12. You take him in the 4th round. Sean Wade had 1st-round talent coming into the 2020 season. You take him in the 5th round. You don't take Royce Newman to Daryl Slayton. I did like the Shamar John Charles pick out of App State. I gave that a B+. Cole Van Lannon, Isaiah McDuffie are just run-of-the-mill 7th-round picks for me. And then I did like the Kylan Hill pick, and I think the Kylan Hill as an A, that's the only reason this isn't a D for me, and that would have been the worst draft class, in my opinion. But I think Green Bay, I don't want to say they screwed it up because I've seen worse classes, and we're going to talk about some that are perhaps worse, but I can't look at their draft and say they got better. Like that, it's pretty rare for a team to add 7, 8, 9 players to their team and not get better. Green Bay is perhaps the team that didn't get better.
Yeah. What would you say the odds are that they selected Eric Stokes specifically because of that play at the end of the first half in the NFC Championship game where Scotty Miller absolutely burnt Kevin King?
100%. They took the fastest corner in the draft, and I think. Look, I know you want to get a Kevin King replacement. I get it. I actually don't mind the Stokes pick. It's tame compared to the Fs and the Ds and the C minuses that I was giving. But, man, Asante Samuel's on the board. Heck, Melifonwu is on the board.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't see it. Tyson Campbell, the other Georgia corner, is on the board. And I slammed it when the Jags took him at 33, but that would have been a better pick than Stokes, I think. I mean, I'm nothing against Stokes, but oh Lord.
I think picking Josh Myers over Creed Humphrey was one of the worst moves of draft night.
Yeah.
Creed Humphrey was my interior offensive lineman 1. I cannot believe he fell to 63.
I'm so mad.
That was,
so angry.
And I can't believe the Chiefs got him.
Yes.
I was sure he was going to Green Bay there at 29. I believe that's what they had. But looking at that draft class, it's like the only really good picks I see there were Amari Rodgers and Kylan Hill in the 7th. Like they whiffed, and it's hard to whiff in a class as deep as this year's.
Mm-hmm.
So
like it was horrific, horror show of a draft class for Green Bay, but it gets worse. Mm-hmm. Justin, let's hear it.
I have no words.
Oh boy.
I have no words.
Oh boy. This is a spicy one.
Penei Sewell was right there. A generational offensive tackle prospect fell into your laps, and you passed on him to relive the glory days of 2019 LSU. I love Jamar Chase. This is not Jamar Chase slander. This is Cincinnati front office slander. This right here is one of the most disastrous decisions I've ever seen a front office make in my entire life. They will regret this for years to come. And, maybe it could have gone okay had they taken a, decent offensive tackle or interior offensive lineman in the 2nd round or the 3rd round, because there were good ones available. Creed Humphrey was on the board. I believe they could have moved up for Tevin Jenkins. They could have taken Brady Christensen.
They could have taken down, right?
Yeah, they traded down. They could have picked anybody but Jackson Carman, who is going to be a traffic cone at the next level. I know this graphic relates to them as a guard, but I honestly think they're going to play him at tackle. And Jackson Carman is not good. I mean, we saw the clip of him circulating around of him leveling a defensive back. The guy was already on his knees and probably weighs 190 pounds. I would hope a decent offensive lineman would be able to do that. Penei Sewell does that to 300-pounders, and he fell into Cincinnati's laps, and they passed on him. I believe that alone makes this my least favorite draft class, and I've been calling for this ever since Joe Burrow went down. Draft Penei Sewell, draft Penei Sewell, draft Penei Sewell. It needed to happen, and I don't understand why you don't. I love the outside pick in the 3rd. I believe, not over another offensive lineman, but he was my edge 5. Cameron Sample is, an all right pick. Shout out to, I believe it was Joey Heisman on the app. I think it was him. He posted right before the Tyler Shelvin pick. He was like, all right, so which offensive lineman are the Bengals about to pass on for Tyler Shelvin? And then literally a minute later, they announced Tyler Shelvin was the pick. I thought that was hilarious.
That was beautiful.
Dante Smith, he's all right. I mean, good depth. David Moore was on the board in round 5, and you picked a goddamn kicker over him. Another terrible move. Trey Hill was okay, I guess. And Chris Evans, and then Wyatt Hubert, another defensive end. They pick some pretty decent players. I like Osai. I like Chase. I like Shelvin. I like Evans. Evan McPherson was probably the best kicker available. But when you have a generational offensive tackle prospect fall into your laps at number 5, and you have one of the worst, if not the worst, offensive line in recent memory, you pick Panay Sewell at number 5. I don't understand this decision at all. And I was just shaking my head until the Dolphins made their pick. It was, oh my goodness. Was McPherson the only kicker drafted? I believe so.
I know the Steelers drafted a punter, and there were a couple long snappers that went. Yeah. There were I don't grade special teams. Like I just whatever, you took a kicker. But I like the Chase pick. By the end of the draft cycle, it's like they're going to choose Chase. I'm okay with choosing Chase. Just get a good tackle in the second round, and Jackson Carman. I'm higher on Jackson Carman than a lot of people, but I think he's going to be a guard at the next level. And you have, I don't know what drugs, since I know PFF's actually near Cincinnati. I don't know what drugs are like emanating off PFF's like facilities that get these Bengals fans hyped up for Riley Reif. Are you kidding me? Like, watch 5 minutes of Minnesota Vikings football, and you'll see that offense is built to protect Riley Reif, protect the offensive line, because they do a lot of. You know how
they do a ton of play action.
Yeah, it's like they're like top 10 in the league in play action. They have a great running back. Kirk Cousins is awesome. Maybe not awesome. Justin Jefferson's awesome. Adam Thielen's awesome. They have so many weapons that the offensive line, as long as it's not as bad as like Cincinnati is, you won't notice. Like if it's as bad as Cincinnati is, yes, it's horrendous. But if it's remotely competent, you're fine. Now, I'm saying Riley Reif is a remotely competent tackle. You take Dylan Radins, who is probably going to be a very good tackle for Tennessee. I'm really annoyed that the Titans got him. And I mean, Cosme went 5 picks later to Washington. We're not going to talk about Washington today, but I think they had a pretty nice class. Why are you taking a tackle that's never played guard to put him at guard? Because he's not going to play tackle at the next level. He's going to play guard at the next level, and he hasn't played guard at all. Like,
I don't understand.
Like I ended up giving the Bengals a B+ in terms of like the players they got, because I like Jamar Chase, not necessarily over Penny Sewell, but I understand. And I said, okay, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt because the second pick is going to be offensive line. The second pick was offensive line, but it happened to be like the 10th best available. Like I know one of the Bengals fans posted a graphic of all of these offensive linemen are available. And then Jackson Carman was a 6th-round grade on that graphic all the way at the bottom. Guess who they picked? Jackson Carman. Like I had Osai as an A. I had Sample as an A. I had Dante Smith as an A. I did give C's to the guys they took in the 200s, but I mean, those are fine, whatever. Trey Hill's a B, Shelvin's a B+. Like I like the draft, but like
Jackson praying Carman, for Burrow.
Come on.
I'm praying for Burrow. If I were him, I would be very, very upset right now.
Yeah, and if I'm the New Orleans Saints, if I'm the fans of the New Orleans Saints, I'm pretty upset with this draft class. Peyton Turner at 28. Nothing against Peyton Turner. I think he can be a very good player in the NFL. But in the first round, top 30? What? Trade down. Are you kidding me? You had 6 picks in this draft class. Why can't you trade down? Yeah. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of teams that would have loved to move up for any of the other edges. You're looking at Rousseau went, Owe went, Tryon went. You get the 5th-year option on those guys. Now, that's why I didn't give it an F. I did give it a D-. I feel like that might be a little harsh because at least you do get a 5th-year option on the Marcus Davenport / Cameron Jordan, what you're thinking he's going to be. Mm-hmm. I get it, I guess. Like I don't think it's the worst pick in the first round. The second pick, Pete Warner. I wasn't as high on Warner as a lot of people are. I guess I tend to be a little lower on Ohio State players for whatever reason, but I don't know. I think he's an okay pick. But when he's your second best pick in the draft, I think that's an issue. Paulson Adibo, it was a reach on my board, but I really like the player here, and I like the Saints addressing the cornerback room because they don't necessarily have a need at cornerback per se. Like, they have pieces in the secondary. Like, you don't look at the Saints and say, they could really use tons of corners. Well, they got a really good one in Adibo, and I think Adibo can be a future Pro Bowler. Then why on God's green earth are you taking Ian Book in the 4th round? Like, in the 6th round, sure. In the 7th round, sure. 4th round at 133 in a draft that Jamie Newman went undrafted. In a draft that you could have gotten Jamie Newman as an undrafted free agent, you take Ian Book 133rd overall. This is baffling to me. It's like last year. I think it was last year. They had 4 picks in the draft, and they took a developmental quarterback in the 7th round. Like, why are you're just wasting it? You know, you took Troutman and you took 2 other players that I'm just totally blanking on, but you're wasting a pick in this draft. Now, if you had like 15 picks, or if you had correctly traded down with the Turner pick and gotten him a little bit later and picked up a 2nd and a 3rd or a 4th or whatever, and picked up more assets for Warner, traded down for Dave. If you trade down with any of these guys and you pick up more assets, I understand the Book pick. It's not an F. But why are you taking Ian Book as a priority in the 4th round? You can get good players in the 4th round. There are going to be Pro Bowlers out of this 4th round draft class. Ian Book is not going to be one. I would be shocked if he plays more than 5 snaps in the NFL. Are you kidding me? And then Landon Young, Kawan Baker, I gave them both C's. I haven't watched them. I maybe watched a little bit of Young when I would watch like SEC stuff. Kawan Baker, I'd never heard of him. I can't bash those picks because, 1, I haven't scouted the player. 2, they're 206th pick, 255th pick. Saints, you get a C-. Like, you're going home to your mom. Your mom is like slapping you. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at that draft class, like, the first word that comes to mind is just like whatever. Like, it just does not stand out at all. Like,
No.
I'm actually not as, I'm not going to bash the Peyton Turner pick the way a lot of people have. I actually don't mind that pick, but I do agree they should have traded down if they wanted to do that.
Yep.
Warner, I like. Adibo, I like. Book, I hate.
Yeah.
You said,
why
like,
are you taking Ian Book?
You're like, why are you drafting Ian Book in the 4th round? I'm like, why are you drafting Ian Book at all?
It's true.
I don't believe Ian Book is going to see any sort of success at the NFL level. I'm sorry, Holden. I know that's your guy, but I don't understand that pick, especially over guys like Jamie Newman who went undrafted. And then, like you said, the last 2 guys are just whatever picks. Like, this entire draft class is just
whatever, really.
Whatever. But speaking of whatever classes, I think this was a little bit of a more throwaway draft for this team.
Oh boy.
I know they were in a tough spot.
Yeah, this is
I
just
know
ugly.
there wasn't much room for them to do much. The Houston Texans, I guess they just kind of punted on this draft. I guess I get taking Davis Mills at 67. This is basically them saying, we don't think Deshaun Watson is going to be back this year. We don't think he's going to be playing. So let's trot out Davis Mills out there and hopefully lose 16 games. Or Tyrod Taylor, whoever they want to throw out there.
Mm-hmm.
Nico Collins is all right, I guess. Brevin Jordan is probably the only pick out of this class that I really like over there in the 5th round. I think that's great value. Garrett Wallow, whatever, Roy Lopez, whatever. And like I said, I know there wasn't a lot of room for maneuver here with Houston. They gave up their 1st and 2nd round picks to Miami for Laramie Tunsil, which turned into Jalen Waddle and Javon Holland. Thank you, Houston. But I believe with how deep this class was, they could have done better.
Absolutely.
And I guess my decision to like put them in my least favorite draft classes is partially influenced by their decision to give up a king's ransom for Tunsil. I don't believe you give up that much like value for very few players. I believe Tunsil was maybe worth it. I mean, I believe he was a top 2 left tackle in the NFL at some point. Not this past season. I believe he fell off just a little bit. But when the organization implodes the way they did, and I know nobody could have saw that coming, but like this could have gone so much better for them. And like it's just a stream of bad front office decisions that I just don't like. And it's just another like whatever class, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we were doing like 4 bad each. The Texans would have been my fourth. I gave Mills and Collins C pluses, Jordan an A. I love that pick. Wallow a C minus, and then Roy Lopez. I mean, I go to the University of Arizona. If a player is good, I'm going to know about him. I got to give him a D. A C in total. And like I said with the Saints, when you have 5 picks, why are you taking a quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you are totally bereft of talent, why are you taking a quarterback? Like, even if you took Trevor Lawrence, you're not going anywhere here. And I just think the Texans had not quite as bad as the team I'm about to get to, but it was a pretty bad draft. Speaking of that team I'm going to get to, I graded 200 players heading into the draft. 200. Most teams filled out their draft with majority of guys in the top 200. Some didn't. Okay, that's fine. And some, like the Texans, for example, only had 5 picks. So if you draft 2 guys in the 6th round, then that skews it. The Los Angeles Rams had not 1, not 2. They had 9 draft picks. 2 of them were in my top 200, and zero of them were in my top 135. The best player they selected was Tutu Atwell out of Louisville, 57th overall. I had him as the 136th player on the big board. This is like, I'm going to talk about Seattle for a second. Dwayne Eskridge went 1 pick beforehand. This shows me the Rams were Eskridge or nothing really. And are you kidding me? I thought Eskridge was a reach at 56. Tutu Atwell at 57? Excuse me? I gave it an F. It's one of the only a handful of Fs I gave out in the entire draft class. Nothing against Atwell, but why are you drafting a wide receiver? 2, why are you drafting Atwell over the rest of the class? Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
45 picks later. This is just laughably bad. Ernest Jones in the 3rd round, D minus. Bobby Brown the 3rd, he was the only other player that I had in my top 200. I gave him a C because that's a huge reach because he was number 180 on my board. Holy crap. Robert Rochelle out of Central Arkansas, heard the name, haven't watched a ton of film, only a C minus there, but again, 4th round. Jacob Harris, I like the tools, but in the 4th round, C minus. Ernest Brown the 4th, congratulations, you got 2 Ernests that neither will be helpful in the NFL. You got 2 players named Ernest, and you got 2 players that are Brown the something. You have Brown the 3rd and Brown the 4th with Ernest here. D minus there. Come on, what are you doing? What are you doing? They did get Jake Funk. That was the only pick I graded above a C. A C. Every other team, there were teams in this class that went without getting a C. Cleveland, Detroit, examples. The Rams got 1 grade above a C. They got a B plus for Jake Funk. Ben Skowronek out of Notre Dame and Chris Garrett out of Concordia St. Paul. That was the one that finally stumped.
Never heard of some of these guys.
Yeah. I've done a lot of mock drafts. I've 7-round mock drafts for the Ravens for various teams. I haven't heard a lot of these guys, and even PFF had no idea who Chris Garrett was, and they have way more resources than I could ever imagine. Mm-hmm. So it's sad when I'm giving you C's for 7th round picks, and that's improving your draft grade. If you cut out the 7th round, this is a D minus, I think. Maybe probably a D, maybe not a D minus. But oh my Lord, Los Angeles! Jake Funk, cool. Jake Funk's fine. Like Holden said, we got that Funk. Yes, you did. But Jesus, this was horrendous.
Yeah, Austin in the comments saying Creed Humphrey would have been nice at 57. Yeah. Creed Humphrey would have been nice somewhere early in the 1st for a lot of teams, and everywhere in the 2nd, aside from 63 where he did eventually get drafted. Mm-hmm. Great pick, Chiefs. But yeah, I think this is when I looked through all the classes, I was this is the only one where I immediately went, wow, that's bad. Yeah. All the other classes, I looked through it, I was okay, you got some good picks here, but it's still not that great. This class, I looked at it and I was no. Tutu Atwell at 57 was awful. Yeah. I don't care. He's 5'7", 150 pounds. He got bodied at Louisville consistently. I don't think he's going to be much of a contributor at the NFL level. I mean, people were freaking out about Devontae Smith. Why don't you take a look at this guy?
Yeah. And Devontae Smith has football talent, right?
Exactly.
Oh my
But
goodness. And even I know what your next team's going to be, but even like they had talented players. They have guys that
exactly.
I gave ace to. They have guys that you probably really like. And if you like move a couple picks around, it's not a bad draft.
Mhm.
It's just the order was, and go ahead and reveal it.
Yeah, before I reveal it, I'm actually gonna, give a little bit of announcement to anybody who's watching. We after this, we're gonna do a segment where we predict some rookie stat lines. So if there's any players that you want us to, give a projection on, just go ahead and tell us. We'll be
I'll
sure to
push it
get it
out on
done.
the app for it real quick.
Yes, and also we'll probably do like a little Q&A maybe. So, any questions you have, feel free to put them in the comments. Be sure to answer them at the end of the show. But I agree that the Rams had the worst draft class, but the second worst, in my opinion, other than maybe the Bengals. I mean, Bengals at least had some decent picks, but
Yeah, I
they
gave them a
just
B
Bengals maybe the most angry. But in terms of like say value, I guess this is probably the
plus.
one that aside from the Rams is just Las Vegas Raiders. I said Los Angeles, excuse me. Las Vegas Raiders. Alex Leatherwood at 17. I believe you said at some point, like something along the lines of he has more memes on his phone than he's going to play meaningful snaps in his rookie year or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
And
I think he has over 1,000 memes on his phone. And I don't know how many snaps he played at Alabama, but how many good snaps is he going to play as your right tackle, Vegas? Like a
not a
guard,
lot,
sure, but
at
this is
least
the
early on,
Jackson
not a lot.
Carman pick all over again.
Yeah. I mean, the only really consolation prize here is Trevon Moehrig there in the second round. I believe that was definitely their best pick. Absolute steal there in the second round. But then you move on. You have Malcolm Kunze, Divine Diablo, all name team right there. But
Yeah,
if we
absolutely.
were grading on names, that'd be an A. If we're grading on being good at football, probably not an A.
No.
Tyree Gillespie, not a bad pick actually, but then Nate Hobbs and Jimmy Morrissey is just more whatever. And like what stands out to me here is Leatherwood at 17. Year after year after year, the Raiders just make these baffling picks in the first round. You got Clelin Ferrell at 4. You got Damon Arnett in the first. I believe that was the same year as Clelin Ferrell. But
It was Arnett last year. It was Abram, Jacobs, and Farrell in 2019.
okay, all right, yeah. Um, it has to be Gruden calling the shots there in the first round because I know for a fact Mike Mayock is better than this. It has to be Gruden calling
I'd
the
like to
shots
think
there,
so,
and
at
he's
least.
just and like you look at these guys, they're definitely guys Gruden would like.
Gruden Grinders.
Yes, exactly, Gruden grinders. But I mean, I like the Murray pick. That had to be a Mayock pick right there. But Gillespie at 2. But Leatherwood in the first just like kills this class for me. Like especially when you have like Tevin Jenkins right there or Creed Humphrey. I like the idea of going offensive line considering they shipped off 3 of their best offensive linemen to God knows where. I don't understand that. That was one of the more baffling moves of the offseason. But I think the Raiders are definitely going to be taking a step back this year. I feel bad for Derek Carr. He, like, after that leg injury, he's just been messed up and he hasn't been given much help since. But I just don't like it. Like, the Bengals class made me angry. This is just disappointing to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I gave Leatherwood a D minus. Moehrig, I gave an A. Kuntz, Diablo. Kuntz was actually the first player not on my big board selected, but I had heard of him and I knew good things about him, so I gave it a C. Diablo was a reach, but I think good player, C plus. Gillespie, I think, is the better safety of the two. Might be the better safety moving forward. I gave him an A. Hobbs, I got nothing.
Didn't they take 3
Morrissey, I got
safeties
nothing.
too?
Yeah, they got 3 safeties.
What's with that?
You
I
have
do not
Jonathan
understand
Abram
that.
on the roster. I don't know. Maybe you move because I know Mora can kind of do it all. Gillespie, if I remember correctly, was more of the free safety with the I forget who took the other one. I talked about him earlier, but like I don't know. I know the Jets took like 5 defensive backs, but at least like they've already announced 2 of them as linebackers. I haven't heard the Vegas announce any of these guys as anything other than a safety. But hey, they still play John Abram out of position. I don't know. I mean, I think Vegas is just on a different planet right now. They had a couple good picks. I gave him a C plus as a whole, so they weren't like a bottom 5 class for me. But Alex Leatherwood at 17, man. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. So that was ugly. But let's move on to some of these rookies, some of these stat predictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna give you one here. So last year, of course, Justin Jefferson, huge year as a rookie, 1,400 receiving yards for the Vikings, and probably was the best rookie, but quarterback Justin Herbert trumps him in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. So which wide receiver in the 20s, so Kadarius Toney or Rashad Bateman, would you prefer to have in fantasy this year?
That's a tough one. I like Bateman as a player much more than Toney.
Mm-hmm.
I believe
Agreed.
Toney was one of the more baffling picks in round one. But they're both coming from off. I mean, of course, Bateman is coming from a much better offense and a much better quarterback than Toney has thrown to him. But when you run the ball as much as Baltimore does, it's hard to, guess what kind of numbers Bateman is going to put up. Mm-hmm. That being said, though, I like him well enough that I believe Lamar Jackson is going to be better. Lamar Jackson is going to be better throwing the ball to Rashad Bateman than Daniel Jones is going to be throwing to Kadarius Toney.
Agreed.
Especially considering New York has pretty solid receivers on the roster. They signed Kenny Golladay. Kadarius Toney is probably going to be like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 on that roster. Rashad Bateman immediately becomes Baltimore's best receiver. Mm-hmm. I know Sammy Watkins, Hollywood Brown, but I believe
Watkins is not. No.
Yeah, it's just
No point.
I believe Bateman probably year one probably puts up somewhere in the 700, 800 yards range. Hopefully catches a number of touchdowns. I believe he's going to be the wide receiver 1.
I mean, he could catch 10 touchdowns. You look at Mark Andrews' production last couple of years. Marquise Brown as a rookie caught 7. Mm-hmm. Like I think
he probably puts up around probably 800 yards, 8 touchdowns.
I'd be pretty happy with that. And I think Baltimore is just weird in a way that Marquise Brown is actually pretty productive when you consider that the Ravens are last in pass attempts.
Yeah,
and he and Andrews are 2 of 15 guys that have had 15 or more touchdowns the last 2 years. This is Hill, Kelsey, not Golladay, Thielen. These are elite receivers, elite tight ends having this production, and you have Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown on the list. Mm-hmm. I do want to talk about. I do like Toney, and I like the Giants adding another piece to the offense. And Toney does something different from Golladay and Slayton, because Golladay and Slayton's pure deep threat. Golladay is more contested deep threat.
Mm-hmm. Like Devontae Parker, but good.
Yeah, essentially. And then Toney is more Toney's going to create. Galladay's going to Daniel Jones, if he has good, solid, remotely good ball placement, Golladay will catch the football. Toney is going to be that intermediate guy, 10 to 15 yards, and then create. Gets a 12-yard catch, 5 yards after the catch, 8-yard catch, 11 yards after the catch. Kind of A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel in a way. Not quite as physical as them, but I think Toney's going to be a very good player. I just tad early for me at 20.
Yeah.
So do you have any? Let's hear your rookies.
Let's see. We talked about this edge class a lot. So it's a bit of a weird edge class. There was no really consensus number 1. So I want to know, which edge defender do you think is going to have the most sacks this year?
Okay. First off, I think maybe Baltimore Alex said this, that Owe is either going to lead the draft class in sacks or have 0, and I totally agree with that.
Definitely.
I want to lean Jalen Phillips. I said earlier today that if I had to guess on one player outside of the top 10 being an All-Pro one day, I would guess Jalen Phillips. I think Phillips is incredibly talented, and I think he's probably the most pro-ready. And I would say I'm sure we've mentioned on previous shows that sacks aren't always the best way to measure production. Yeah. So I think Phillips will probably lead in pressures. Mm-hmm. Sacks can be totally random. It could be Owe. It could be Rousseau. It could be Turner. it could be Peyton Turner. It's a very good defensive front there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different options, and I think I'll take Jalen Phillips. So So Jedi Master J on U Stadium wants your opinion on Jalen Camp.
Jalen Camp, wide receiver, tight end hybrid out of Georgia Tech, right?
Yes.
Yep. And he went to Jacksonville, correct?
Yeah, I think it was right at the end, the 7th round. Maybe at UDFA, but right at the end.
Did they take another tight end?
Yeah, they took Luke Farrell out of Ohio State.
Okay, well, Jalen Camp is probably better than Luke Farrell.
Agree.
I like Jalen Camp. If they play him at tight end, I see him, catching a moderate amount of passes, probably to somewhere in the 30s, I guess.
They have nothing at tight end. They traded Josh Oliver for a conditional 7th.
So if you're trading Josh Oliver, then that's a sign that you are in trouble there at the position. But I mean, you put him on the line. You can also put him out wide. I believe, it's really just dependent on how much they use him, I guess.
Right.
So I say at the peak, it's probably around somewhere in the 30, 40 catch range, somewhere around there. Grab 300, 400 yards, maybe a touchdown or two. It's hard to project when you have a late round pick that much. I mean, when you have a late round pick and you don't know what his role is going to be. So hard to project, but I like Jalen Camp. I think he'll contribute at some point.
Shout out to the Georgia Tech fans on the app, Anonymous Jets. I don't know if there's any others, but there were some people hyping up Camp throughout this season.
Yeah. How about we look at running backs, another class that really didn't have a consensus number one. You got Najee Harris to Pittsburgh at 24. He's probably going to get so many touches.
That's scary. He might be a top 10 fantasy pick.
Yeah. So do you believe any back will upend Najee Harris as number one rookie running back this year?
ETN, no. I don't know what Jacksonville's doing. I mean, I like some of the spots these guys go to. For example, Javonte Williams. But I think Denver, one, has Melvin Gordon. So, no, I don't think any – I don't know if it's a hot take, but I think Najee Harris doubles any other running back from his class. I think he finishes as – I think Najee Harris will finish as a top five. Top five. He will be your league winner. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be picked in the first round, but he will be a top 5 fantasy running back this year. I don't think any rookie comes particularly close. I mean, I like I forget who the Jets took, but I like
Carter.
Yeah, I like Michael Carter if you can execute the Shanahan system correctly. I don't know if they are doing that, but if they are able to execute it correctly, which is hard to do, then maybe Michael Carter, Trey Sermon. I don't know why San Francisco took him that high, but I guess I'll give Trey Sermon the benefit of the doubt because he is running the best system in the NFL, and Baltimore didn't take any running backs. So, yeah, I think Najee Harris is going to be a slam dunk. So we have one more from the app. Let's talk about Trey Mckitty and Nahshon Wright. Two of the
who said this so I can figure out what team they went to?
Trey Mckitty was tight end out of Georgia. He went to the Chargers. Nahshon Wright, cornerback out of Oregon State, went to the Cowboys.
Okay, Trey Mckitty and the Chargers, probably their best tight end already, considering they lost Hunter Henry.
I do like, was it Parnell? Parnell?
I'm not sure.
But he caught a couple touchdowns. He was nice when I watched the Chargers.
Yeah, considering what the Chargers have, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and I believe they took another receiver as well. It's escaping me which one they took.
Shoot.
I believe it was a slaughter deep threat guy, but considering he's going to be like the 4th, 5th weapon on that offense.
Oh, Josh Palmer.
Josh Palmer, correct. Yeah. McKitty's probably going to be I like Trey Mckitty. I believe he was in my top 5 tight ends. If not, he was just outside of it. I like him. I just don't see him having that big of a role in this offense right away, considering, all the talent that's around him in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer. So, probably somewhere in similar to Jalen Camp, probably somewhere in the 20, 30, 40 catch range, a moderate amount of yards, maybe a touchdown or two. Something like that. And the other one was Nahshon Wright, sick corner.
Out of Oregon State, went to Dallas.
Dallas. Okay. Well, Dallas needs a lot of defensive help. So I expect him, he'll probably contribute. But what round was he taken?
He was 3rd round, pick 99, so right at the start of the comp picks.
Yeah, so he'll probably contribute. Probably doesn't put up eye-popping numbers right away because, as we all know, cornerback is one of, if not the hardest position to transition from college to the NFL. So, he's probably going to have some growing pains. But he should contribute considering how, thin that Dallas defensive room is.
Absolutely. So any final words before we wrap it up? We just hit 1 hour.
I mean, I could go through my honorable mentions, I guess, for draft classes, if anybody's watching and you're pissed that we didn't talk about your team. My favorite draft class is like guys I consider talking about: the Lions, the Broncos, the Bears. I know you talked about the Lions and the Bears, but they were also up there for me. Broncos, I love their class. I also like the Dolphins class. I think the media is higher on the Dolphins class than I am for once, which is weird. Other classes that I didn't like, Raiders I talked about. You talked about the Rams. I'm not a big fan of the Colts class. It wasn't bad. I'm just not a fan of it. Jags had some questionable picks. Steelers I wasn't that high on. And then, the aforementioned Bengals and Texans.
All right. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I'm going to break down all 32 draft classes over the next few weeks. I know it's going to be a little late. I get it. I'm moving out of my dorm tomorrow morning. I'll be back home very soon. So I'll have those out. Those will be pre-recorded. And I showed the Patriots graphic earlier today. So prepare for more on the clock content. Hopefully those are going to be. I'm gonna work my tail off to make sure those are really, really crisp videos. So it was a pleasure having you on as always, Justin.
Of course.
And we will be back at an indeterminate date in the future.
So hopefully next season we can get this started. Maybe towards like the end of the college football season, end of the NFL season. So we can make those way too early mocks and discussions. Just go through the entire draft process.
We can do a 2022 mock draft next week.
Oh man, no way! I'm gonna have to do some research before we go into that.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure having you on. Make sure you drop a like, follow the channel, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your socials. Join us on the U Stadium app. I'm at Splash. He's at JWD, and I pointed the wrong direction. And we will be back again, indeterminate point of the future. Peace out, ladies and gents. Yeah, of course.